I gave these 5 corrections in class this week, and each one helped to correct some pretty major issues. Watch this video if you want cleaner, smarter technique. So the first correction I gave this week has to do with alignment. Alignment is super important, and it's based on the square that we find ourselves in when we come into our dance studio. So I'm going to imagine now that I have a square that's drawn around my body. And in that square, we have walls and we have corners. So imagine that you're in my space with me, and the wall right in front of you is going to be wall number 1. Then we're going to go to the next corner 2, wall 3, corner 4, wall 5, corner 6, wall 7, corner 8. Now, this may not be the way that you have done it in your school. Some use different types of numberings for their methods. However, understand that that's perfectly fine. What's most important is that you understand that we have the corners and the walls, and that those corners create diagonals from one corner to the next, and that across the walls we have straight lines. So we have our basic position en face, where our body is facing directly to the front. Then, if we turn ourselves to one of our downstage corners, and we put our downstage leg in front, we're going to be in a quasi-alignment. So our body is going to be facing to one of those corners. If we now go to an open position where I put my upstage leg in front, that's going to present us or put us into a position where eventually we could align ourselves effacé. So quasi meaning crossed, effacé, if we take that to an actual tendu devant, now you start to see that my alignment is based on where my position is going. And the effacé meaning shaded. If I put my shoulders in the right position and I bring my arm up, this back arm and shoulder should be in shadow. We shouldn't have it coming to the front like this. Also, if I go to my tendu devant and I go on quasi and my tendu devant starts to come to the front, you can now watch as I move my leg to where it should be, how much longer my leg becomes as I get my foot along that diagonal of the space of my square that I'm standing in. So these alignments are very important, and what I was finding is that dancers were working in between alignments. So instead of being precise with the shoulders and hips going to the corners that they should be going to, they were somewhere in between. Now, this may seem arbitrary, it may not seem important. However, you could see already, first of all, with the leg line, that made a huge difference in the line of my leg, even though it didn't actually get any longer. If I go effacé like this and I'm doing tombe pas de bras down the space, I'm not actually then able to create opposition through my body as I go through that space if I align my shoulders and my body correctly. So very important to make sure that your alignment is there. Find that diagram for yourself. Think about your space. Think about how your hips and your shoulders are aligned to those corners, and you'll find that a lot of movements actually become easier. Things like a fouette, for example. If I'm going to go for an Italian fouette and bring my leg up to that corner, as I come through, I now have to make sure that I come through first position to the back corner, so that when I brush my leg there, I can go through a nice second position and finish arabesque on the same diagonal that I started the whole movement when I brought my leg to écarté. So whether that's going into an attitude, whether it's going to an arabesque, the whole thing works because I'm using the diagonals of the space that I'm working on. Correction number 2 has to do with using your arms to help you build power for your movements. So one of the major things that I have been seeing recently in classwork is, number 1, everyone skips preparatory position. Number 2, once they skip preparatory position, they skip first position as they open. And this comes massively into play when we start to do things like grand jeté, when we start to see arms going out to the side, not coming through the middle, not helping you to gather your energy. So the major correction that I ended up giving this week was, as we started the glissade, the arms come out to the side. In the glissade, in the air, your arms are in an allongé as your legs go through fourth position in the air. As you land, your arms come down through preparatory position. Your weight, remember from last week's corrections, your weight should be on the leg that you're going to transition to brush your other leg into the air. And as you do that, your arms come through preparatory position, they come up through first position, and they expand into the arabesque as you jeté. If you're skipping that, if your arms are flailing around, not going where they need to, not using that energy to grab all of the power from the base of your plie in the preparatory position, you're not going to be able to lift yourself up together with your leg with that grand battement to get you into the air to fly in your jeté. This led to a subsequent kind of semi-correction that went along with this, which was that often happens, the leg brushes up and then we go darting forward as opposed to going up and over in the jeté. Now I find this happens a lot more with women who are aiming for a flat split in the jeté. What we want to see is that you're almost like an airplane flying up, hanging in the air for a second, and then coming down. So this leg has to go up into the air. You have to imagine there's something you're jumping over. You push your hips up into the air. And as you get up and over, that's when the back leg comes up, and you keep that back leg up in the air until you land, lift a little bit more, and then you can come through. That extra lift at the end is going to give you, again, more energy and give the illusion that you're staying up in the air. Now, I find this often comes also from how we use our arms in plie. So if you haven't developed a correct coordination at the bar with how your allongé comes down together with your plie to then pull up, then you're not going to have that same connection in the center. Your arms come down with the plie to pull up as you stretch. Very important to ensure that that coordination is being built from a fundamental perspective so that you can gather all the energy together with the depth of your plie to then give you the energy to get up into the air for the next part of your jumps. Speaking of plie, our third correction had to do with rotation and how the rotation of our legs starts the bending of our knees. So I'll take this from the perspective of when we start learning about turnout, I always get my dancers to start in parallel and start by rotating their legs without moving their feet. I get them to plant even weight through their big toe, their little toe, and their heel, so energy is spread across the whole foot, not just on one part of the foot. This is very important because that allows you to fully engage and understand the connection of your deep rotators. Now, as we then take that further to the bar, you can pull the inside leg heel forward, which is going along the correction of last week of heel forward into turnout. And then from there, you're starting your rotation, not by just bending the knee, but by rotating the leg. So you start to see this movement of rotation, and that causes your knee to bend as you go down into the plie. This isn't just about plie, though. Let's say I want to bend my knee and pull my foot up into a coup de pied alignment or up into retiré. The whole movement starts the same way. So instead of thinking I'm just bending my knee angling forward, not using the rotation that I've developed by understanding how my rotators work, what I then want to do is think from here, I'm starting by rotating the leg. The rotation causes the knee to bend, and then I continue that rotation as I withdraw my leg up into the position. This then can be developed further in things like enveloppe, fondu, ballonnet, where, for example, if I extend my leg out to the front and I want to bring this back and not have my foot come back and my knee stay forward, from here it's not just about pulling the knee back because often that moves the hip. From here, what I'm thinking is rotate, 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 and that rotation gets the leg back into the correct alignment. From the back, it's the same thing. Rotate, 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 and that heel is going to come in. Now, it doesn't matter how flat your turnout is. The goal is to start from rotation. When you start to work in that way, you'll find that your turnout actually gets stronger because you're using the starting point, the increase of the rotation, to allow the leg to move into the next position, which is then developing the strength of your turnout. Speaking of turnout, I'm going to make this next video from my waist down. So you'll still be able to hear me, but it's going to have to do with your tendu alignment and all second and why this really matters. So bear with me, guys. Do you see this line on the floor? Even if I don't have flat turnout, I can still move my leg directly out to the side. Now, what tends to happen is we get a correction of, well, I don't have flat turnout. If I move my leg side, how am I going to maintain that? It's going to cause all kinds of problems. It's going to cause more stress in my hips, and my knees are going to cause me more pain. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my leg forward this way because that's going to create more rotation. And because now my leg is forward, I can put my heel more forward. You're not actually changing the rotation of your hip. You're just doing it from the ankle and the knees. So what we want to find is a straight line. And using a line on the floor is a really good way to do this. So following that line out, even if your heel is not forward, we're trying to develop the alignment of the legs in relation to each other straight out to the side. Now, somebody's going to say, but your heels aren't forward. That's true, but my standing heel isn't forward either. So it doesn't make sense to compromise and try to bring this heel forward when my standing heel is not forward as well. Now, we can talk about a rond de jambe. Some people say, oh, well, this is my all second. It's much safer to do it there. But if we do a rond de jambe from the front and I go to this point, I still have to go back through this movement as I go around from side to back, which means that all second still requires a side lying position in order to create that alignment. We have to work to the side in order to, at some point, go through these positions. Whether you feel more comfortable in a forward alignment or not, side is important to develop. Now, we can do this safely. We do not have to compromise hip alignment. We don't even have to compromise the safety of the standing leg, as long as we start from the point of finding rotation, which you would have found in the previous correction. So if you're being told to bring your leg diagonally forward, understand that while that écarté alignment is not something we don't want to develop, it's also not the à la seconde alignment. And they're actually two different things which we need to develop as dancers in order to most accurately and precisely develop later techniques that are going to require us to be able to move through both positions. So the fifth and final correction was related to classical aesthetic. This is very important because even though in many different choreographies you'll be asked to do all kinds of different positions, understanding the fundamentals of the aesthetic alignment in the body and then relating that to how we're creating different shapes can make your dancing look very messy or very precise. And so if we're thinking about the basic fundamentals, have an imagination and go back and find that image of the Vitruvian Man. I'll go ahead and pop this in there now. The Vitruvian Man is the Da Vinci image that aligned the body for its most aesthetic visual placement. And so you can see those 3 points of the legs, you can see the 3 points of the arms. Now, in ballet, we still use obviously higher leg alignments, but they need to create some sort of parallel element or symmetry to what the legs are doing. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to find, for example, the most aesthetic alignments of the legs. So the most aesthetic alignments would probably be this tendu line here, slightly that 45 degrees position between the floor, and then 90 degrees. We then would have slightly above 90, and then this alignment here, which is going to be related to where our arms are. So if we now think about the arms of what we do in ballet, and I'm going to go through the extended positions first, because you'll see why in a second. If I start here with my rounded arms and I extend out to this allongé, that's one position. Then I go to the allongé to the side, that's two positions, and then I go up here. You're not going to find many positions up here. Now watch what happens as I round my arms from there. They're going to cross over. So if I go to this position, where I've got that almost 45 degrees between straight out and straight up, from here, as I round my arms, I create a perfect alignment for fifth position. If I go out to the side and I have my arms straight out and I round my arms, I create a perfect alignment for second position. If I go diagonal here and then I round my arms, I create the perfect alignment for preparatory position. So each of those alignments of the allongé, round, allongé, round, create the alignments that we would have for our basic classical positions in ballet. Now let's say, for example, I went somewhere here and I try to round my arms. While we can do this position, generally speaking, it's going to be a little bit lower, and it's going to be the rounded position just of that allongé, not going to be up here somewhere in between à la seconde or second position and the rounded position. Same thing for the top. You're not going to bring your arms all the way up and then try to round them here, because then we're losing the classical alignment of the fifth. So all of those positions are important. And what I was finding was that dancers didn't know exactly where their arms should be. So I had stretched arms up here, I had arms crossed over, I had second position arms behind them, and they were losing the alignment of their body in space, which related back to the first correction that I gave about how you place yourself in the room. So using classical positioning, using classical aesthetics, it's very important to understand how your arms position themselves. Now, if you see, this alignment here creates a triangle. This alignment here creates a triangle. This alignment creates a triangle between my head and my shoulder and my arm, right? If I go tendu to the front, I'm creating a triangle with my standing leg and my working leg and the floor. If I go out to the side, I'm creating a triangle with my working leg and my standing leg. Those triangles allow you to have the most aesthetic positioning that we can have. Now, if I go, let's say I go, bringing this back together, if I go tendu croisé, but I go here, you're not seeing the triangles that I'm creating with my legs unless I turn myself to that croisé, and now you can see that triangle alignment. So creating triangle shapes with our legs, even in arabesque, it's going to have that triangle alignment. And then creating those placements that have parallel alignments to what our legs are doing with our arms. For example, if my leg is out to the side, my arm is going to be parallel to that position. right? I'm creating the same type of alignment. My leg goes up. I'm trying to create the same relationship, symmetry between the upper body and the lower body. That symmetry, those classical alignments are going to make your dancing look cleaner and more precise. I hope you guys have enjoyed this and that these corrections have helped you. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments, hit the subscribe button, and let me know if there's something else that I can help with. I can't wait to come back next week and share the next 5 corrections that I gave to my students.